2019 has been quite the year for video games, and we've seen such a variety of great games over the past 12 months. Some of these games have been from franchises that we've known and loved for years, while others are completely new. Whether you're into shooters, online multiplayer games, adventure games, MMORPGs, horror games, or even sports games, there was most likely something that came out this year that you loved. On today's episode of The Countdown, we'll be covering the 10 best games of 2019. It was pretty tough to narrow this list down to just 10 games, and you might not totally agree with us, but these are the games that we enjoyed playing the most over the past year. Number 10. Untitled Goose Game. If you would have told me that one of the best games of the year was going to have you running around as a goose and driving people crazy, I wouldn't have believed you, because what the hell is that? That makes no sense. That's some like bargain bin thing you'd see someone Let's Player pick up or whatever. But Untitled Goose Game is an absolute blast. The premise is pretty simple. You play as a goose and you're given a list of tasks to complete. Each of these tasks has you doing something to annoy a nearby human, and the end result is often extremely satisfying. Untitled Goose Game is incredibly simple in design, but it's just as entertaining as any of the other big-name games that have dropped this year. The only independent game on our list, this goose-centered adventure is a great example of how a good idea can be more important than a big budget, and it's certainly one of the best games we've seen in 2019. Number 9. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 is a remake of the original game of the same name, which was released all the way back in January of 1998. This new and improved version takes all of the horror mechanics from the original game and gives them a great 2019 polish with incredible graphics and gameplay. One of the best survival horror games that we've seen, Resident Evil 2 does a great job at building tension as terrifying enemies stalk you throughout the game's dark and narrow corridors. You'll need to play smart if you want to get through this one, and choosing the right time to use ammo and weapons is crucial to survive. If you're looking for a good challenge with a scary edge, Resident Evil 2 accomplishes that and then some. Number 8. Pokemon Sword and Shield. Pokemon Sword and Shield brought us the 8th generation of Pokemon into the world of gaming, and there are now over 800 Pokemon altogether. Pretty crazy, right? Sword and Shield are the first Pokemon games to bring a new generation to the Switch, giving us one of the deepest and cleanest looking Pokemon games of all time. The game's UK-based map is one of the best designed worlds we've seen, and the game's overworld gave us tons of awesome Pokemon to encounter walking around in the wild. Raising a team of Pokemon from a low level all the way up until they're able to beat the Elite Four is just as satisfying as it's always been, and now it looks and feels even better than ever. Number 7. Apex Legends. As far as Battle Royale games go, Apex Legends is one of the only games to ever come close to matching Fortnite. Apex took the Battle Royale concept made famous by Fortnite and added different characters with specific attributes, and the end result can almost be described as a Fortnite-Overwatch hybrid. Teamwork is definitely a big part of Apex, and with the game's ping system, communicating and working together with your team towards victory is just as satisfying as it's ever been. With the new characters and game types being added frequently, Apex does a great job of updating its content and keeping fans entertained. And as far as online multiplayer games go, it was one of the biggest of the year. Number 6. Control. Our pick for number 6 just might be the most underrated game of the year. Even though nobody is really talking about it, Control is some of the most unique gameplay we've ever seen. Not only does it make for a great shooter, but the game's psychic powers provide some incredible action. You play as Jesse Faden, a new director in charge of a classified government agency that deals with the supernatural. The agency has been taken over by some sort of evil entity called the Hiss, and it's Jesse's job to stop them. She has the ability to use telekinesis, allowing you to control almost anything you can find in the environment and launch it at your enemies. She can also levitate, allowing you to get to areas that aren't available on foot. Control has a great story too, and we're really surprised this game isn't getting more hype. The only downside is that Control doesn't perform as well on regular Xbox Ones and PS4s, and you'll need a good PC, PS4 Pro, or Xbox One X to get the best gaming experience. Otherwise, we loved Control and can't recommend it enough. Number 5. Luigi's Mansion 3. If this was a list of the most charming games of 2019, Luigi's Mansion 3 would probably be number 1. Luigi might often be overshadowed by his brother Mario, but this game gives him a chance to soak up the spotlight, and he certainly doesn't disappoint. This time, Luigi and friends are staying in a haunted hotel, and everyone but Luigi is locked inside magical paintings. This, of course, means that Luigi must save them, using this Ghostbuster-style backpack to defeat any ghost that might get in his way. The way that Luigi interacts with the environment around him is always entertaining, and there was clearly a ton of time and effort put into the design of the game's enemies. Luigi's Mansion 3 is an absolute blast, and we recommend it to anyone out there who is a fan of Nintendo and the Luigi's Mansion franchise. Number 4. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Call of Duty Modern Warfare is the first time Call of Duty has put out a game worthy of being in a top 10 for quite some time. After being forced to release a game every single year, Call of Duty got pretty stale for a while, and Activision was struggling to come up with fresh ideas that could convince people to drop $60 each and every year. Thankfully though, Modern Warfare is great. The game's brand new engine and polished gameplay does a great job of making Modern Warfare feel new and improved, without giving up what makes a Call of Duty game so addicting in the first place. On top of great multiplayer, the game's new campaign is more grounded in realism, and they've gotten rid of all the bad futuristic weapons and over-the-top story. If you haven't played a Call of Duty game in a long time, this might be a good one to come back for. Number 3. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. From the creators of Dark Souls, this insanely difficult action-adventure game has you playing as a Japanese shinobi named the Wolf, who must defeat a handful of dangerous enemies in order to rescue a young lord. What really makes Sekiro stand out is its combat and art design. You use a retractable prosthetic arm that can be turned into a handful of different weapons, from firecrackers to spears, kind of like an old-school Japanese Inspector Gadget. The game's enemies are inspired by Japanese folk tales, and to get to the end, you'll need to take down ancient samurais, flaming bulls, and giant snakes. If you've ever played a Dark Souls game, you'll know what to expect here, as the game only has one difficulty, and that difficulty is very, very hard. You'll probably rage quit more than once, but if you're good enough to get through this game, it will feel like quite the accomplishment. But trust us, it's not easy. Number 2. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is surprisingly an amazing game. This is especially true because in the past, single-player Star Wars games have been often downright terrible. Luckily though, Fallen Order makes a strong argument for the best Star Wars game ever. A must-play for anyone who is a huge fan of Star Wars, this game takes place between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and tells the story of Cal Kestis, a Jedi on the run from the Empire. With some really great lightsaber gameplay and detailed planets, there are hours and hours worth of great content here. The game expands on the universe of Star Wars too, introducing all new creatures and characters that fit perfectly into the world. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, Jedi Fallen Order has one of the best stories and gameplay of any game this year, and it's guaranteed to give you your money's worth. Number 1. Death Stranding. Is anyone surprised? Death Stranding has dominated headlines since E3 2016. Everyone wanted to know what this game was about, and somehow it delivered. Death Stranding is not like any other game on this list. In fact, Death Stranding is not like any other game ever. This is the latest game from the creative mind of Hideo Kojima, who made a name for himself through the Metal Gear series. This time though, you'll be spending a lot of time walking from point A to point B, making deliveries. The entire premise of the game is to reconnect the communities of the world after the human race nearly goes extinct, and in order to do this, you'll need to do a ton of traveling. This game is certainly not for everyone, especially if you're looking for a game with a ton of action. There are a ton of cutscenes and the overall story is very abstract and different from anything else we've played. There is a great community aspect though, as other players can build structures that will actually help you progress through the game. It's pretty hard to explain the appeal of Death Stranding in just a few sentences, but this game is so unique and ambitious that we absolutely had to include it on this list. Well, that's a wrap on our top 10 games of 2019. There's no way that you agreed with every game on this list, so let us know what we forgot. What was your favorite game that came out this year? Be sure to subscribe to the countdown here on YouTube, leave a like, comment, and ring the bell so you know when we upload. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.